Welcome to today's deep dive. We're so glad you could join us because we have a truly massive, frankly unprecedented topic to unpack for you today.
We really do.
Yeah, our mission for this video is to analyze a highly sensitive leaked tactical map along with this incredibly thick stack of geopolitical data. It outlines a massive, impending, multi-front ground operation in the Middle East.
Developing at breakneck speed, I should add.
Right. And the sheer scale of the military logistics involved here is, well, it's nothing short of staggering. But before we get into heavy stuff, please subscribe to our channel so we can keep bringing you these deep dives.
It's a critical moment in global geopolitics, and it is important to state right up front that as we examine these leaked maps and intelligence dossiers, we are maintaining a strictly neutral perspective. We're not here to endorse any political stance, we aren't justifying military actions, and we certainly aren't taking sides.
Exactly. We are just looking at the data exactly as it's written.
Right. Our goal is simply to help you understand the vast complexity of the source material. And I have to say, the geopolitical picture being painted by this data is, it's incredibly dense.
It really is. So to set the big picture for you, to really understand what's driving these tactical movements, we have to start with the stern declarations coming out of Washington right now.
The rhetoric has been intense.
Yeah. According to the documents, President Donald Trump has demanded an unconditional surrender from the opposing nation. He has completely ruled out any sort of diplomatic resolution.
It's a remarkably hardline stance. The rhetoric being deployed doesn't leave any room for negotiation. It's a zero-sum declaration.
And the administration's plan goes even further. The briefings highlight this comprehensive vision where, after installing what they are explicitly calling acceptable leadership, the U.S. and its allies plan to launch a massive economic reconstruction effort. Plus, the U.S. Secretary of Defense claims the opposing leadership will soon be begging for a cessation of hostilities. From a purely strategic standpoint, the sheer audacity and structural planning here, it's an incredible chess move. They're rapidly preparing for a full-scale ground operation.
The political rhetoric is certainly projecting absolute control. They want the world to believe this is a tightly choreographed operation. But here is where we need to look through a much more critical lens. Because according to the data I have, simply stating that the coalition is ready to launch an invasion is actually a fundamental mischaracterization of the strategic reality on the ground.
Wait, really? How so? Because the public statements make it sound like they're holding all the cards, just waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
The reality hidden in these logistical briefings is much more precarious. The escalating events on the ground, combined with some incredibly severe economic pressures, are actively forcing the coalition into this ground offensive.
So they're rushing.
They are being pushed to act much, much earlier than their own logistical timetables would. They're being boxed into a corner where inaction is rapidly becoming more costly than action.
I love the analogy the source material uses for this exact situation. It compares the coalition to a chess grandmaster who's being forced to sacrifice a defensive posture just to forcefully secure the center of the board.
That chess analogy perfectly encapsulates the immense geopolitical risk at play here. The Grandmaster is making a massive sweeping move, but they are doing it completely off balance.
Yeah.
And when you look at the sheer scale of what they're attempting across multiple fronts, the potential for horrific humanitarian costs and shadow war complexities is astronomical.
Okay, let's unpack this, specifically by looking at the southern front on this tactical map, because the primary economic objective for the coalition here is the immediate unblocking of the Strait of Hormuz to achieve freedom of navigation.
Right, the critical bottleneck.
Exactly. For those listening, picture the mental map. You have the Persian Gulf, and at the very bottom right, it pinches into this tiny, narrow strait. And looking at the tactical ingenuity of how they plan to pry that bottleneck open, it's brilliant. I'm looking at this map, and there's a huge focus on mobilizing the southeastern region. Why target that specific demographic?
That focus is centered on the Balak minority group. To achieve freedom of navigation, the coalition has to establish absolute physical control over the northern coastline. The Balak people are located in those southeastern regions, and they've been historically marginalized by the central government.
So they present a highly strategic vector.
Exactly, albeit a volatile one.
Wait, so by stepping in and promising this group greater regional autonomy or even sovereignty,
Right.
The coalition is aiming to leverage local armed formations? Are they actively trying to start a localized uprising?
They're essentially weaponizing historical grievances to ignite an insurgency from within, yes. The tactical goal is to force the central government to divert its heavily armored divisions away from the coast and into a messy internal conflict.
Wow. The coordination required for that is a logistical marvel, especially when you factor in the naval positioning. Because this territory is right on the Gulf of Oman, the coalition can provide direct fire support from U.S. naval assets positioned just offshore.
Right.
We are talking about the massive firepower of the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group. Sinking an internal minority uprising with offshore carrier bombardments from guided missile destroyers is an incredible play.
It is a massive display of force, undoubtedly, but we have to stay grounded in the grim reality of what this actually entails. The ultimate military objective on the southern front isn't just creating chaos, it is the physical capture of Bandar Abbas.
Which is the main coastal city right at that pinch point.
Precisely. It is the padlock on the gate. Without securing that specific city, the maritime blockade cannot be broken. And this is where the critical unknown factor comes into play, causing deep anxiety among military planners.
You mean the actual timeline for taking a city of that size?
Yes. They're anxiously calculating exactly how many days, or potentially agonizing months, it will take to secure heavily defended urban terrain.
Urban warfare is brutal.
It's notoriously slow and devastatingly costly in terms of human life. You cannot simply clear a major metropolitan center with naval artillery without causing catastrophic collateral damage. Every day that city holds out is another day the global economy bleeds.
That is a very sobering point. So if taking the South requires this grueling urban slog, how does the coalition maintain momentum? That brings us to the second phase of this map. By utilizing local armed formations and allied forces from neighboring Azerbaijan, they are opening an entirely different theater in the northwest.
Right, hitting them from both sides.
Yeah. The first goal here is purely geographical, drastically shortening the physical distance, and advancing force has to travel to reach Tehran. You can imagine the immense psychological and logistical pressure that places on the Central Command.
It aggressively splits their attention. They have to look south to the ocean and north to the border at the same time. But before we delve deeper into the macroeconomic game being played in that northern sector, let's take a quick...
Yes, absolutely. If you're finding this breakdown valuable, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. It really helps us out.
Yeah.
Now, diving back into the Northwestern Theater, here's where it gets really interesting.
The land bridge.
Exactly. Shrinking the distance to Tehran is a major military objective, obviously. But the second goal is a massive macroeconomic play. This northern offensive aims to carve out a secure, contiguous energy corridor linking Azerbaijan directly to Turkey.
And we should clarify what a contiguous energy corridor actually means here. It doesn't just mean building a pipeline. It means carving out an unbroken, heavily defended physical land bridge entirely under Allied control.
Which is huge.
What's fascinating here is the sheer geopolitical weight of that single corridor. If secured, it enables the uninterrupted export of Azerbaijani oil and natural gas directly into the Turkish network,
bypassing the Russian Federation completely. By rerouting this pipeline, the coalition is essentially redrawing the economic borders of Europe and Asia.
That is exactly what makes this so critical. The intelligence dossiers remind us that neighboring Armenia remains deeply tied to Russian economic structure. So by establishing this new corridor, Turkey and the EU drastically reduce their historical reliance on Russian energy.
It's a massive strategic blow, and the logistical buildup to execute this multi-directional assault is accelerating. Over a recent 24-hour period, there was a massive redeployment of U.S. military vehicles moving straight toward the northern Iraqi border to reinforce Kurdish formations.
A highly visible undertaking. You don't move that much armor without someone noticing.
Right. Concurrently, Azerbaijan announced the closure of its airspace near the southern border for 12 hours.
The classic preemptive measure.
You clear the skies before the jets start flying. Plus, state authorities temporarily suspended the primary transit route, severing Russian logistical supply lines. Right now, there are massive columns of military hardware staging along this boundary. Just picture the sheer traffic jam.
It's unbelievable.
Instead of someone cutting you off in a Prius during your morning commute, it's thousands of tons of armored vehicles and mobile missile launchers gridlocked, waiting for the green light.
It is a striking visual. But while we analyze the mechanics of this three-pronged ground assault, we absolutely cannot lose sight of the shadow war. Global superpowers are not just passively watching this unfold.
Wait, so there's outside interference happening?
Oh, absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this regional dispute has rapidly transformed into a full-blown superpower proxy conflict. According to the data I have, both Russia and China are actively involved on the ground.
Doing what exactly?
They are supplying the central government with highly sensitive satellite and signals intelligence.
Just so we're clear, what does signals intelligence actually mean in a combat scenario like this?
Signals intelligence GINT, or SIGINT, involves intercepting electronic communications, radar emissions, and data transfer. Essentially, Russia and China are giving the opposing forces an invisible map of exactly where the coalition is staging and communicating.
That is a terrifying advantage.
It is. In fact, analysts believe the precise targeting coordinates used in recent missile strikes against U.S. and coalition bases were directly facilitated by these Russian and Chinese intelligence networks.
Wow.
This severely complicates the coalition's path to a swift victory. You aren't just fighting a regional power, you are fighting a regional power being spoon-fed real-time battlefield data by two premier superpowers.
And that technological shadow war reflects in the physical arsenals too. The data shows opposing forces deploying newly developed advanced missile systems. Meanwhile, the coalition relies on established conventional arsenals,
which are backed by UK special forces and advanced weaponry, yes, but the technological gap is closing.
It really is two massive military apparatuses colliding head-on.
And the most concerning part is that this collision is happening directly on top of incredibly fragile global supply lines.
So what does this all mean for you? Why should someone watching this video halfway across the world be deeply concerned about a tactical map in the Middle East?
Because the collateral damage of this maritime standoff is actively pushing the broader Middle East toward a catastrophic humanitarian and economic abyss. The data lays out a grave assessment. Major regional nations are currently standing on the very edge of a severe famine.
It's that bad.
To truly understand the gravity, look at the import numbers. The UAE, Bahrain, and Qatar import approximately 90% of their entire domestic food supply. Saudi Arabia relies on foreign markets for 70 to 80%.
And virtually all of that life-sustaining cargo has to pass through the very waters they are currently fighting over.
Exactly. Through the heavily contested Persian Gulf and that tiny pinch point, the Strait of Hormuz. If commercial shipping remains paralyzed, the clock starts ticking very, very fast.
The 10-day warning from the data is absolutely chilling. Analysts warn that major cities like Dubai could face critical, society-destabilizing food shortages within a mere 10 days.
Analysts are warning of a potential disaster of a magnitude not seen since the Second World War.
There's a dark, almost surreal comedy to it. You have Dubai, a city where you can literally snow ski inside a luxury mall in the middle of the desert, and yet, because a port a few hundred miles away gets blocked, they could be out of basic groceries in 10 days.
It violently exposes the extreme vulnerability of our interconnected world. Wealth cannot generate food if the supply ships cannot dock.
And alongside the famine threat, global energy markets are fracturing. Crude oil prices have already surged to $92.50 per barrel.
And the natural gas sector isn't faring any better. Qatar has firmly stated they will completely halt the production and export of liquefied natural gas until all military actions in the region entirely cease.
And given the deeply entrenched positions right now, a complete cessation of hostilities seems entirely out of reach.
A total halt of Qatari LNG exports is a devastating blow. The economic shockwaves are going to be felt globally at every gas pump and utility bill across the planet.
It is an incredibly grave reality. To summarize the massive amount of data we've unpacked today, we are looking at a situation where two deeply entrenched sides are locked in mutual destruction. The world is holding its breath for an inevitable ground invasion, and the coalition, despite their tactical ingenuity, is racing against a ticking economic and humanitarian clock to force a resolution before the region starves. Please subscribe to our channel to join us for our next deep dive.
And this raises an important question to leave you with as you consider all this data. If we go back to that analogy of the chess grandmaster forced to make a drastic move to control the center of the board, what happens when the opponent is playing with a totally different set of rules, backed by the satellite eyes of two other global superpowers?
It changes the entire game.
Exactly. In a world so intricately interconnected that a localized border dispute can empty grocery store shelves in Dubai in just 10 days, is the very concept of a swift military victory even possible anymore?
That is the ultimate question military planners have to answer, and they have to answer it fast. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.